Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're going to wait a few minutes for everyone to filter in and get settled, and then we will start our program. And usually we have during this point some witty banter or something like
That's
that
right. We
we
could have
that
some
we
witty
used to have.
banter. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you think, what do you think the weather is going to be like this weekend? I don't know.
I think it's gonna be cool.
I
It
think
was
it's going to be cool.
cool-ish. I know, like I got home from work today, and I was just I was drained. Like I said, I'm getting over a cold,
Yeah.
and I went in, said hi to everybody, turned right around, and went and laid in my hammock, and and they said it was like 73 out, but it was so windy.
It felt
I was
cool.
cold. I was
Yeah.
cold. Came back inside because it was too cold, but.
Yeah. It did feel
Um,
cold.
yeah, but it doesn't look like any rain. So that'll be good for Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, good.
As long as you just put a jacket on, it'll
I
be
think
fine.
we'll have some rain in between though. But
Oh
who
yeah,
knows?
yeah. Wednesday and
The weather
Thursday
could
it's
be
supposed to.
wrong.
Yeah, Wednesday and Thursday it's supposed to rain, but I'm not. I think the weekend looked pretty okay. So.
Well,
All
we'll
right.
see.
Well, it looks like we got a lot of people in here tonight. This is a great turnout. So
Good.
again, welcome to the New Jersey Library Trustees webinar on library law with attorney Douglas Zucker. And before we get to his answering of questions and introduction by Pat, I just wanted to say that if you do have questions for Douglas, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to enter those. Please only use the chat button if you want to post a link, talk to us about something that's going wrong technically or something like that, or to kind of talk amongst yourselves, or if Douglas asks a question of everyone here, you can post your question in the chat, but please use the Q&A for any of your questions. And that being said, also, this kind of thing runs on questions from you. So please don't hesitate to use that Q&A button early and often to put in there any questions you may have. We do have a list of questions to kind of fill in for times when Douglas might have answered all the ones in the queue, but hopefully we'll have a vigorous question and answer session tonight. Pat, did you want to? I think that was all of my stuff.
I think
Um,
so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if you want to
Yeah.
introduce Douglas,
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really thrilled to be here introducing Douglas to everyone. This is the first time that he is meeting the trustees, the NJLTA members and the trustees. So I will say Douglas Zucker is a partner with the Weiner Law Firm. His practice focuses primarily on representing employers in labor and employment law issues, as well as general business contract law. He's been representing public libraries in labor and employment in general library law and other legal matters continuously through most of his career. He currently represents over 50 municipal libraries and county library systems in New Jersey, and I do not think he is looking for any more business. Um, from libraries at least. In his role as general library counsel, Douglas advises and assists libraries on issues that we are going to be discussing tonight, like patron relations, OPRA, Open Public Meetings Act compliance, confidentiality of library records, and many other items. Um, Douglas provides advice and counsel to his library clients on a broad range of labor and employment law topics, including union and non-union environments and civil service jurisdictions. In addition, he also represents numerous library foundations and friends groups, and he has been, and you may have met him at other conferences. He's been at ALA and other NJLA conferences and Buckles and the State Library. And he is here tonight because he was recently appointed as outside counsel to the New Jersey Library Association. And many of you who have been long-term trustees do remember that Michael Cerrone was doing that and has now retired. So we really want to give Douglas a very warm welcome. So thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate that.
So we do have one question in the queue. Douglas, I didn't know if you had any thing you wanted to say before you get bombarded by questions. I didn't want to just like jump in and start firing right away unless you had something that you wanted to say first.
I just wanted to thank the association for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. As Pat said, I do represent a lot of libraries, so I probably should change my intro to say his practice focuses on public libraries and those other things that I do, because at this point, that's most of what I do, or a lot of what I do. And so I'm very happy to be here, and we'll try to get through everybody's questions and answer them the best we can. Keep in mind, though, that although I am an attorney, I'm not your attorney. And I went through the list of who was here really quickly, and I saw several names of people that I know I am their attorney or that board's attorney. But tonight, I'm not. Tonight, I'm speaking here. I'll answer the question as best I can, and obviously, I'm coming from the perspective as an attorney, but I'm not here to provide legal advice. So anything I say should not be construed or interpreted or understood to be legal advice. It's just guidance. It's something to get you thinking or get you on the road to help to find an answer. And I encourage you to, whatever you come up with, to please speak to whoever is your legal counsel for your library, your board, and get their answer, because that's who should be providing you legal advice. So with that disclaimer, let's go.
Take it away.
Right.
So the first question is basically kind of a general question. The person wanted you to talk about the relationship between the town and a public library. And from the person who asked it, I'm going to assume that's a municipal library.
I'm assuming that as well. Okay. I'm laughing because that question, I'm speaking next week at the NJLA conference, and we have a 50-minute panel focused just on that question. So I'll hit on some key points about it, but I'm not going to get into all the detail. Even then, I'm not going to get into all the detail. But there's a lot going on. And in the many years that I've been doing this, it's really over the past 7 or 8 that this has become increasingly an issue. And I think it's because towns are looking at budgets and they're seeing that, well, why does the library get 1/3 of the mill? And when that calculates, and that's a lot of money, and why does the library need all that money? Because they're ignorant and don't understand what libraries actually do, and why libraries do need that money, and also don't want to appreciate the fact that the law says the money goes to the library. That's why it's called the library tax. That seemingly is why the legislature broke it out, I think in 2011, and to make it a separate line on our municipal tax bills to say library tax. So it's clear that the money is supposed to go to the library, not to be siphoned off by the municipalities. Nevertheless, that's what we're seeing them doing. Sometimes they're trying to take control of the library, or maybe take control over the budget, or maybe they're trying to take control over the building, or they're trying to say, no, you take care of the building and we're going to put all the expense on you, library board. You pay for everything involved with the building. There's a lot of different ways that they've done it. Sometimes, and I don't want to say it's all bad, there's sometimes in some places where there's a very, very positive relationship between the town. And I'm going to say town, even though most municipalities in New Jersey, actually, I found out, are boroughs. But I'm going to say town because it's just easier. There's a lot of towns where there's a very positive relationship and where they work very well together, and the town's very supportive of the library in terms of financially, but just in terms of other things. Historically, libraries enjoyed the benefits of having the town do things like hand processing payroll, paying for their insurance, doing probably larger maintenance issues, handling, along with insurance and payroll comes health benefits. And a lot of other pieces like that. And what we're seeing now is the boroughs chipping away or trying to charge for their services. And in some, I know I have two of my newer libraries where the town said, we're done, you're on your own, and we're not having anything to do with you. You have to do everything on your own. Which means they're starting from scratch, even getting an EIN number, which is like a social security number for business, which you need in order to function in business, to pay employees, to open a bank account, all those things. And if it happened to two that I know of, I'm sure it's going to has happened or will happen in other places as well. So there's a lot that's in there, and a lot has to do with, in dealing with it, is what the relationship is like, and it becomes a negotiation. And with any negotiation, the key to the negotiation is leverage. So what leverage does the library have with the town? Town's collecting the money, so they have it, so they have to give it to us as the library. That's the first step to get over it. Sometimes that's where it ends. And how you get leverage, there's a lot to it. I'll just touch on it, but like the people who are running the libraries, in my experience, library board members may have been in politics before, but on the library board, they're not really there as politicians. They're just there as library people. But the people who are running the towns are politicians. They got elected to those positions, and so political influence sometimes can make a difference, or political pressure rather than influence can sometimes make a difference. And depending on who you can get on your side. In addition, the public tends to love their library, so if you can get the public on your side, we've done different things in those regards. We've also made threats, but I don't recommend threatening to, or you can threaten to litigation. I don't recommend ever that a library would sue a town over this. I've not seen a situation that's gotten that bad, and I can't imagine why that's a good idea. It's going to be a lot of money. It's going to create a lot of bad will between everybody. It has to be negotiated. You can't really try to sue your way out of it.
Mhm.
I think that's probably, there's a lot more to it, but that's.
And for the rest of it, you should register for the NJLA conference, specifically the pre-conference on Wednesday, right?
Actually, I'm speaking on Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh, Thursday.
Right, Thursday.
Okay. Oh,
Thursday
yeah,
at
that's
4,
right.
actually.
Okay. Yeah, so there was something else about the pre-conference I know I had to do on that, so I thought that was it. But yeah, sign up for the NJLA conference and come down to Atlantic City with us, and you can hear the rest of that discussion
That's right.
there. So okay, next question. So is the municipality responsible to pay for the maintenance of library buildings?
That's a very good question. Before we went live, we were talking about the ambiguity in the law, and this is the place where there's ambiguity in the law. Again, and this is also an area where really this ties in beautifully with the first question, because this is one of the big areas where there's often animosity that develops between the municipality and the library board. The law is not clear on it. What the law says is that title to the land or title to the library building has to be held by the municipality. But it says the library building is under the control and use of the library board of trustees as long as that building functions as a library. So if you look at the definitions of capital expenses for libraries, that includes things like HVAC systems, and it includes a roof, and it includes renovations and reconstruction of buildings. All of those things which suggest that the board can be in charge, but it's also the property of the library. Some cases, the library is actually in a city building. It's part of the complex. That's the township municipal complex. There, I don't see how they could, with a straight face, get away with trying to charge the library for maintenance. But I know that it happens because I have one library where that's exactly what they were discussing and trying to resolve, because the town was saying, well, no, you should be paying for this. And they're saying, it's your building. We see it with parking lots where I've had it where the town tried to charge the library to plow the parking lot. The library said, it's not our parking lot. Yes, people who use the library use the parking lot, but excuse me, it's a municipal parking lot, often shared with another entity or another aspect of municipal government. But even when it's not, it's the municipal spot, the town's parking lot. So if you don't want to pave the lot, then it's your citizens who are not going to be, your voters who are not going to get into the library because you didn't plow the lot. So there's not a simple question to anonymous to answer ask that question. So I'll address them as anonymous. There's not a simple answer to it, and it's a matter of negotiation. A lot of times we think of it as the inside and the outside of the building, that the town's responsible for is outside, which is the structure itself, like windows and doors, getting the utilities to the building, getting the electricity, getting the water and everything to the building. And then the library board is responsible inside the building, which is for carpeting and painting and lighting and
Shelving,
bathrooms
things like
overflowing.
that. Yeah.
Right, and anything, as well as all the other things that you would think of being part of the library, equipment and obviously materials and the collection and all those things, which obviously are. But from capital, that's one way we'd be able to work it out at times. Doesn't always work that way, but we've had the most success with that line. Although on things, big expenses, HVAC is the biggest common expense, that and a roof. But HVAC is usually the most expensive one. And sometimes an elevator as well, if you have an elevator in the library. And those are harder to negotiate because nobody wants to have to pay for them.
Yeah. All right. Next question kind of dovetails with that. Is there an analogy with renters and landlords, like a basic level of services that could be defined? I mean, the analogy kind of falls apart because the library doesn't pay rent, but still.
It's a useful analogy, but it's also not a useful analogy. Because one, as Bob said, legally, the library can't pay rent. Although I have had boards try to charge rent to libraries, we had to tell them, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. Where the analogy falls down is that there's no tenant where the landlord is coming in and saying, the roof has a hole in it. We need you're gonna have to contribute to the cost of the roof, or we need to replace we need to redo the landscaping outside, and you're gonna have to contribute to the cost of the landscape of the. It doesn't work that way. That's a given. It's much more established in terms of what the relationship is, and there's also a written agreement between a landlord and a tenant called a lease, which talks about the responsibilities of each party. You could have a what's called a shared services agreement between the township and or the town and the library as to who's responsible for what. That's a good idea if you can get that negotiated. And that way it would be more similar to a renter and landlord. So there's some similarities, but there's not a basic level of service that's defined anywhere. It's a matter of past practice and then what you can negotiate when they try to change the past practice.
Okay. Next question, Dolores asks, can a board trustee be a member of the Friends group that does fundraising?
Can a board trustee be a member of a Friends group that does fundraising? I think the board trustee should be a member of the Friends group that does fundraising. Yes, absolutely. You absolutely can be a member of it. I don't recommend that you be the president of the Friends if you're a current member of the board, because there's just an appearance of some potential conflict. But to be a member of the Friends group that participates and supports the library, one of the expectations of trustees is that they're going to support their library, and supporting your local Friends group is one way to do that. And so I don't think that there's any conflict. It's possible there could be something in the bylaws that would say it's a conflict, but if I saw it in the bylaws, I would ask why it's there and look to take it out. So I don't see. The answer is yes. A board member can be a member of a Friends group that does fundraising for the library.
Yeah, that was always my understanding that, you really want to encourage trustees to join their Friends groups.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they should be two groups that work well together. But like you said, Douglas, that it being the leadership being the same would be a little bit much, but definitely working together is really, really good. So next question from anonymous attendee says, Should library boards pass resolutions supporting or opposing state laws like the Freedom to Read Act?
Okay. I'm not sure why a library board would pass a resolution opposing a state law, because if it's the law, why, I don't understand what the
Yeah,
purpose of the resolution would be. Alternatively, to pass a resolution supporting a state law like the Freedom to Read Act is perfectly wonderful. You don't have to do that. The law is what it is, and hopefully all libraries are complying with it. But I know a lot of libraries who have when the board decided they wanted to pass a resolution, just sort of echoing the sentiments and the intentions behind the Freedom to Read Act. There's
yeah,
a lot of libraries, there's a movement among libraries to declare themselves as book sanctuary libraries, as a safe reading space. It ties in very much with the Freedom to Read Act. There's, I don't know, it's probably around 40 libraries, maybe the number's even higher. Every time I look, it's higher than the last time I looked. But it's spread throughout the state, and it's a resolution saying that this is a safe place where you can read whatever you're free to read, whatever you want to read. Does the same thing as, not everything the same as the Freedom to Read Act, but the concept of doing that is the same.
That it's supportive, that it's supportive.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
did,
Like
and we did that in Edison as well. You're absolutely right. The numbers of towns who have done that continue to grow, to just show support for the freedom to read.
yeah.
Right.
I think it's
I would strongly advise against the library passing a resolution against the Freedom to Read Act. That's
Yeah.
libraries fought really hard to get that passed, and so
Yes.
I would hate to see a board who went against that.
yeah. I mean, a law is a law. Whether however you feel about it is kind of immaterial to if it's a passed law, you have to follow it. So,
Right.
Right.
I mean, affirming something or something like that is fine, but it's kind of just, you know,
Yeah, again, there's nothing that says, there's no reason why a board has to pass a resolution supporting any law, including the Freedom to Read Act. It's not necessary to do it, but if they want to do it, they certainly can. So the question was, should they pass it? I don't know if I would say they should. I would rather, if it said could, then the answer would be certainly yes.
yeah. Okay, next question from Cynthia asks, how frequently should bylaws be reviewed for possible revision?
There's not that much that changes for bylaws. I would say no more than maybe once every 5 years. There's not so much that really changes. If there's some dramatic change in the law, which I don't ever really remember happening relative to trustees, nothing. I don't know if either of you had or Bob, if you have any.
No.
It happens
But
rarely.
right, yeah, and in the event that happens, then hopefully your attorney or NJLA or the state library or everybody or the
Right.
trustees association, we're all sending out something. In that case, everybody probably should have to be reviewed. But overall, I mean, I review bylaws, and usually when I review them, they're probably 15 to 20 years old. So
Mhm.
so 5 years is at a minimum. How often? There's just not that
Right.
much to do unless they were written if they're written a long time ago. You should look at them and just see if they're outdated. But
Right. I think some bylaws were updated, during COVID, when it was like when you were putting something in that you could meet virtually, stuff like that.
Mhm.
But you're right. I don't think there's often a call to make many changes.
Yeah, I mean, the last like large changes to library-related legislation were the Return of Funds Act, the Johnson legislation, now the Freedom to Read Act. But it's the large changes to the structural statutes are rare. Some of the statutes we're working with were passed in the 1950s and haven't been updated since then. So, but yeah, like I've gotten this question before, Douglas, and I think I said the exact same amount of times, just to reread them every 5 years. You don't need to go through a whole process in the board, but just kind of reread them for anything that stands out and, is, oh, that's totally wrong now. So, but
If they weren't prepared by a library attorney, once you get a library attorney, you might want to do it, because I know I've read bylaws and I said, who wrote these? Because they don't really fit. They don't make sense.
mhm. Yep. All right. Next question from anonymous attendee. And I'm just going to edit this a little bit while I speak it. What is the library? What should be the library's position if or when ICE agents seek to question patrons in the library?
Again, I'm not giving legal advice, but my opinion is the library shouldn't have a position if ICE agents seek to question patrons in the library, any more than if anybody else seeks to question patrons in the library. They shouldn't, if the ICE agents are disturbing patrons and violating your code of conduct, the same as would happen with anybody else who violated the code of conduct, then you could intercede on the behalf if asked by the patron. So if a patron complained that they were being harassed by the ICE agent, then the library could intercede. But I don't think the library should insert itself between an ICE agent who is trying to do his or her job and their questioning of patrons. I just think it's beyond the scope of what a library legally can do. There's not really any basis for it. I'm not advocating what they're doing, and I'm not saying a library is a place where they should be coming in and doing that. But I just don't see a legal basis to do that, and I'd be concerned about exposure for the library, and even worse, I mean, some of the, you've all seen it the same as I have. There's where somebody videos where ICE comes into and they're going to grab somebody, and somebody else tries to help that person, and then they take that person away as well. And the last thing I'd want to see is a library staff member interceding, and then they get pulled away, even though I know they're a citizen and or otherwise legally eligible to be here. So I would just be cautious, and if you think of it as if your local police officer came in and was questioning a patron in the library, would you intercede? I'm guessing not, and I would treat it the same way.
And I guess another kind of corollary to that question that I would have is as far as the the confidentiality of library records statute goes, it applies still to ICE agents as well, correct? That they would have to have a subpoena or court order or something like that before you would turn over any user records.
Right. Of course, a court order or court issued subpoena. Exactly. So that's different. So then the question was about agents just speaking. Well, it said if agents seek to question. So if you're asking the staff to identify certain people, that's when you say that's something we're permitted. We can't really do that. That I would not do. I'm not saying you have to be cooperative and helpful to them. I'm just saying don't put yourself, or don't let your employees put themselves at risk. Two different things, but certainly they don't have any special authority, and it's a state law that protects the confidentiality of library records, not a federal law. So I don't think even a presidential executive order could overturn that state law.
Okay. Next question from Wayne. We use the same attorney that the town does. It has been cost effective. He never bills us. It is especially helpful for union issues. What are your thoughts about that?
As before I answer that, I'll say two things. One, I'm a library attorney. I don't represent municipalities, towns at all. I say that because possibly I'm a little biased. I also did a whole presentation for Buckles on the same question. I understand that if you have the township's attorney and if the township is, so the attorney's billing somebody. So if he's not billing the library, then he or she is billing the town for their time. And so it would be cost effective. I just see it as a huge conflict of interest. And, you know, if you think back to the first question that we had about the relationship between the town and the library and how many times conflicts arise, well, if you have the same turn, if a conflict like that arises and the library has the same attorney as the town, who do you think the attorney is going to give their advice is going to be more favorable to? If something could be interpreted one way or the other, my guess is they're interpreting it more favorably to the town. Much like when I look at anything, I look for the most favorable interpretation for a library. I've had a lot of situations where I'm in discussions with the municipal attorney, and many times they don't understand library law. I can see it in a union because if they're an employment lawyer, unions are unions, but there are some nuances that are different with library employees than with regular municipal employees. Just a minimal thing is most municipal employees do not work 6 or 7 days a week and don't worry about evening shifts, things that you don't have with the DPWs or other municipal employees. I've also seen it. I had a library that recently retained me. They had an attorney that was their own attorney, not this, but it was somebody who had close political connections with the municipality, and things started to get tense, and the advice that they were getting was not clearly aligned with what the library was looking for. And when I came in, I said, well, I wouldn't do it that way. And I gave different advice. I'm not saying the other party was wrong. They just were interpreting it with a certain different perspective. I also had it where we were talking about First Amendment audits and what could be done and what the town could do in terms of the police department. And we ended up in one place, we had a whole conference call with the mayor and with the township attorney and the library director and excuse me, maybe some others. And I had to teach them about the difference between a library, which is a limited public forum, and most other public places, which are more open public forums. So there's a lot of reasons why you should having your own attorney, if they understand library law, why it's much more beneficial to the library. The one way it's not is that if it's free, then you know you have to decide what's worthwhile. And if you're getting good advice, great. But I've just seen the conflict happen too many times. So I think it's better. I strongly, very much think it's better to have a separate attorney, particularly one who focuses on or has a knowledge of library law.
That it is best practice, right? It is best practice to have your own library attorney.
And the state library came out with it being best practice years before I ever said that.
Yeah, we as the state library have always said that, and we recognize that a lot of libraries are small and don't have the budget for to have their own library attorney on retainer. And so we said, you might be able to negotiate a piecemeal solution that, you pay per question or per distinct issue. But it is very very useful to have your own attorney versed in library law. And we know, like, using the town attorney, can be little to no cost, especially in Wayne's case. But if there ever is a conflict between the library and the town, you will suddenly be without an attorney.
I just want to clarify one thing that Bob said. Bob said on retainer. To be clear, I have 50-some odd libraries. I'm not on retainer with anybody.
Oh,
okay.
I bill them for the time that I spend. So nobody pays me a fixed amount every month. I have some libraries that call me 3 times a year because that's the only time they have a problem and they need me. I have other libraries where I talk to them certainly every week because there's a lot of stuff going on and they have a lot of needs. And those 2 libraries are paying the same rates. They're paying per hour, but but one's getting billed a whole lot more than the other because they're using the services a whole lot more. So I don't believe that, I don't know of a library attorney that works on a straight retainer, but if you don't have an attorney, when you get one, do not go get a retainer on retainer. That's a waste of money, because
This-
particularly if you're a smaller place that doesn't have that much of a need. If you hire them on an hourly basis, so you only pay for what you need.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
that's
sense.
that's probably coming from my wife, who works for a giant law firm in Manhattan, and their attorneys are on retainer for their clients. So I probably borrowed that term from her.
It's common, but I wanted to be, I mean, I send out engagement letters. I don't send out retainer agreements.
Okay, excellent.
Just
All right. Shaniqua asks, should the library board have the authority to set employee salaries? If so, what steps should be taken if the municipality does not honor the board approved salary ranges?
okay. The library, it's not about should, because the law says the powers of a library include the power to hire librarians and other employees and set their salaries. That's in the statute itself. So relative to the town versus the library board of trustees, legally, it's a library board of trustees authority and responsibility to dictate what library's employee salaries are. There's also an opinion letter from the Attorney General's office from maybe before I was born. Maybe not that old, but from a very long time ago, I think, meaning it's well established and it's never been challenged and overturned, where the municipality was trying to get the library, mandate that the library followed whatever their salary ordinance was. I don't remember the specific detail of it, but I do know what the conclusion of it was. And that they said, although there's a lot of overlap, that the library board of trustees is who sets salaries, not the town. So as to what you should do about it, that goes back to the thing about the relationship between the town and the library board, and about negotiation, and maybe about standing up and saying, you don't have the right to do this. And Bob, I think, just put up the powers of the board. If you put up the opinion letter from the Attorney General too, I'd be really impressed. But I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you.
I might know what it is. We might have it on our library law page.
It's entirely possible. I don't know where I first saw it, but it's possible.
What was it about again?
It's about the right of, when the town tried to assert that their compensation rules should apply to library employees, and the Attorney General said, no, it's the library board of trustees who should have that authority.
Is it board autonomy regarding personnel from 1949?
That may be right. That might be it. See that?
Or 1959, I think.
Whatever. I knew
It
it's
was
very
in your
old.
library law. Years ago, we put it in the library law compilation that we did, and that Attorney General opinion has always
Yeah.
been in the library law compilation, but that's not necessarily up to date yet. But that letter
It is on that page that I put it on,
was
I think.
always there.
There you go.
There's that link that I just put in the chat.
But then there's a practical side there. That's what the law is. The second part of the question was what steps should be taken if the municipality does not want to honor the board approved salary ranges. I think you have to sit them down and talk to them and explain to them why what they're doing is wrong. And good luck, because I had this exact situation arise with one of my libraries, and we sat down and they said, yeah, they said, yeah, you're right. But they didn't want to do anything different. There were enough issues that ultimately I think that they're going to, that the town sort of gave up on that point, and they're pursuing other things, but it's about they're trying to maintain control. And they think because processing payroll means they get to set payroll rates, or they say, well, what you're paying at the library is not consistent with what we're paying other employees in the municipality. And the answer is too bad. They're not the same. They're not municipal employees. And then they say, but the paycheck's saved from the municipality because they're processing payroll and they're on the same health insurance. So it gets dicey, but It's just a matter of negotiating, and pointing to the law and seeing what you can get.
Okay. All right. Next question. We got a lot of questions in the queue now. A lot of people putting stuff in. I'm going to try to weed through them. But Ray asked, or Randy, I'm sorry, Randy asked, for new trustees, what information and resources, such as websites, laws, policies, etc., should we review to best serve as trustees and advocate for our libraries?
Well, I think Bob just put up a link to the state library website. There's a lot of really good information on from that you can get from the state library and from NJLA. A lot of times when I'm looking for something, I start there, just to see, well, what have they said? That's not my endpoint, because if they say it, I have to make sure I agree with it. But sometimes it's a shortcut to help find things. There's a lot of training that I know has happened in the past, and I can't attest to the quality of all of it because I haven't seen all of it, but
Mhm.
I will assume overall that it's very good because it's put out by the state library or the state library in cooperation with the Trustees Association. And so I know that on the state library website, I believe, there's a bunch of webinars that are up and available to view.
Right,
Yeah.
and
The Trustees
NJL,
handbook as well.
yeah, NJLTA has links on their website as well, and the state library has a whole
The state library YouTube channel
YouTube
has a
channel
playlist
yeah.
with every training that we have done
Right.
since COVID, basically in one playlist that you can go through and look at.
There you go.
So
Yeah,
that's
there's
what
a
we
lot
tend to
of
point.
resources.
Yeah, that's what we tend whenever I get the question about new trustees or even new directors, I always say, look at what we have in the sections that we have on the website with certain documents, but definitely go through, and you don't have to watch every video, but look at like some of the ones that are, there's library directors training, the Library Trustees Institute, things like that. Those are on there, and those are good starting points for your education as a trustee. So next question from Wayne. Uh, I think he's saying one of our board members is an attorney. Can we employ him as our attorney?
I believe that would be called a conflict of interest. Um, I, I, I don't know how you could do that. I don't know how.
Yeah, he would be determining his own pay. His own
Right. I was just gonna say, because the board has to vote to approve appoint the attorney.
Yeah,
and so
does seem like
that's
conflict of interest.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, there's times when I'm at a board, not usually, but there are times or when they need to be. If I believe my thing just flashed out about my internet connection being flaky, maybe. So
it's all
if
right.
something
You went
happens,
up
Bob, you'll let me
a
know.
second, but you're fine now.
Okay. So there may be times where I have to bring the board around to have them understand something, or where they say, we hear what you're saying, but we want to do it something different, which is fine because I work for the board. They don't work for me. But if I'm on the board and it's just a conflict, it's not a good idea. So
Yeah.
no, I would suggest if you want him as your attorney, either wait for his term is over or let him withdraw from the board position and become the attorney,
Mm-hmm.
or find somebody
Exactly.
else, one or the other.
Exactly. All right. Lewis asks, many municipalities are struggling with their budget. Do you support requesting capital improvement funding and placing it in a municipal trust account to ensure it doesn't count against the municipal cap?
Um,
A municipal trust?
Yeah,
yeah,
he said not libraries struggling with their budgets, but for municipalities struggling with their budget because of the 2% cap. Like we've seen equalized valuations go up astronomically in the last few years. So libraries' budgets are going up very much more than they have, since I've been working here. But municipalities are capped. So I think he's asking about if they're requesting money for capital improvements from the municipality, is there a way for this, like he suggests a municipal trust account to kind of get around the cap for capital improvement funding for the library?
Um, as I said, I'm not a municipal attorney. I don't represent municipalities, so I'm not going to answer that from the perspective of the municipality because I'm not qualified to answer that. I could get the answer, if I needed to, but just sitting here off the top of my head, I do not have a good answer for that. But what I would say is certainly from a library's perspective, that the library can put funds into a separate account and should put capital funds into a separate account from the operating account.
Yeah,
That's
most
necessary.
definitely.
That's necessary so that you don't end up with a surplus at the end of the year and have to give funds back to the municipality and to protect those funds otherwise. So from that perspective, if you're getting money from the municipality for capital expenditures, it should go into a separate capital account. But what the municipality should do, I think that's beyond the scope of this presentation, and
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm going to address that.
I know, I agree. The library can have the capital plan, a separate account,
Mhm.
but the other
Yeah, the
part. would be
library should have,
municipality.
like you,
It
yeah, like
should.
you, yeah, like you just said, Douglas, the library should have a capital plan and be putting capital funds into a separate capital account by a board resolution referencing the capital plan, and then thereby hopefully not triggering the return of funds law, and also not having the appearance of trying to hide money from the municipality, which is also not a good thing to have. So yeah, but again, with that, I mean, unfortunately, I would ask someone at the municipality um, uh, about that. So that kind of gets into like municipal financing. You could also try contacting the Division of Local Government Services about that and see if they have any opinion on it. But that's who I would ask.
Yeah, well, there's one other thing I wanted to touch on, and something that Pat said about having a capital improvement plan.
Mhm.
It's important for the library boards and libraries have a written capital improvement plan. And this way, when you're putting away capital funds, it's based on a specific plan that's already in place.
Mhm.
It ties into really both things that both Bob and Pat said. It's out in the
Yeah.
open. It's very clear what you're doing.
It's all kind of a flow chart of things that you have with this capital thing, and then at the end you've put the money away so you can do the project and everything is correct and
Right.
things like that.
And
Right,
it may be if your budget goes up and your municipalities is not, that the library will put it, over the period of time, maybe be in a better position to handle the capital expense. That's certainly what municipalities are looking increasingly to do, and if the numbers
Yeah.
work, great.
Yep. Okay. So we have just under 15 minutes left, and we still have a bunch of questions. I'm sorry we might not get to the questions on our document, but this is a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a
Engagement.
good thing. It
We're all
is.
about audience engagement here. So that's great that you guys are all asking questions. So we're gonna start like a lightning round here and kind of get these things done so we can get everybody's questions answered. So Wayne asks, one of our board members is, oh wait, we just
That's
did
a
that.
repeat.
Yeah, that's a repeat. Generally, how much leeway, if any, does a library board have in dismissing a civil service employee? Dreaded civil service questions.
Right. It generally shouldn't be the library board of trustees, in my view. It should be the library director, who's usually the appointing authority for civil service purposes. And then there's a process that they can follow. It's progressive discipline, but there's steps that you take to move, and then the civil, whether they're civil service or not, union or not, they still can be terminated. But you have to go through steps, and it should be progressive discipline. But again, I think it should, in my view, it should not be the library board getting involved. It should be the director.
Yep. And you did a program with Jenny Poo about that a while back, about progressive discipline and things like that.
Right.
And I forget if that's up on our website or not. I don't know if it was recorded.
I don't know if it was recorded.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, whenever I get a civil service question, I recommend contacting the commission. But
or speak to your,
or your attorney.
Your attorney.
to be able to do it.
Okay. Next question. There are books geared towards school children that include graphic acts of sex, etc. Many people want them under the right to read, and many are opposed and consider them pornographic. How should these controversial books be handled?
I would leave that to the discretion of your professional librarians, because they are the professional staff. They're trained in this area. And as the board, I would put my support behind my librarians, and my director, who's in most cases is going to be a certified librarian,
Mhm.
and let them handle it as they deem appropriate.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
I agree.
and we're in the process right now, or the state library is in the process of developing a suggested policy for collection development. And you're absolutely right. I agree with you 100% that it's the librarian who is trained to select material and keep it in the area where they deem that it is going to be of most use.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree with you completely.
Exactly. All right, next question. Can a municipality reduce the 1/3 mil allocation if it has cap issues, such as not going above the number?
the, there's two parts to that don't make sense. Not that
Mhm.
don't make sense, but one, no, a municipality cannot reduce a third of the mill. That's by statute. That's set by
Mhm.
statute. They cannot do anything about that. But it also is separate from the municipal cap. It has nothing to do with the municipal cap. It's not, although it gets included as a municipal budget, it's not part of the budget calculations. It's specifically a carve out from that. It doesn't impact the municipal cap at all. So if
Yeah.
that's what your question is, the answer is no, they can't change it. But it doesn't impact the municipality's
Yeah.
cap at
I mean,
all.
I mean, a
It's
municipality could give money above the 1/3 of the mill, and that money above the 1/3 of the mill would be subject to the cap, correct? But the actual base 1/3 of the mill is not.
yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay. All right. Cheryl asks, what are your thoughts on family members of the mayor and council serving on library boards?
It doesn't happen in my town. I know. I actually had this come up for one of my libraries, and they had originally that the mayor had appointed two people who were current employees of the municipality. And we did the research and confirmed that there was an attorney general opinion that says that current employees may not be appointed as library trustees. So the board president wrote to the mayor, and the mayor said, okay, fine, took those two people off, or withdrew their nominations, and instead nominated the wives of two sitting members of the town council. So again, I went back and looked at it, and there are some ethical concerns about it, but there's nothing illegal about doing it. So it's different for the mayor appointing a family member, because the mayor sits on the board of trustees. So I don't think the mayor could appoint a member of his or her family. There could be a stronger argument there. But if it's just a member of the council who does not have a statutory seat on the board, if their spouse or child or brother-in-law or sister-in-law or whatever, there are some concerns about it, but legally, I don't believe there's anything impermissible about it. In fact, I'm pretty
Yep.
confident there's not.
Yeah. Yep. That's what we've said in the past too. Okay, there is a question that we got prior to coming on today about AI and ChatGPT, and I discussed it with Douglas, and it's such a new area, and an area that is especially in the law, still evolving, that he and I mean definitely I, since I'm not an attorney, don't feel comfortable discussing it yet. So we're aware those questions are out there, but I think we need more research, more information, and things like that before we discuss that. Does that sound good, Douglas?
And it's also, I think, too big of to start
It's a
getting to
big
AI is
topic.
much
It's a
bigger
very
a
big
topic.
topic.
Yeah, that probably could be its own
Yeah.
session by itself.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
I think.
So it's not like we're ignoring it or anything like that. We just need more information. We want to give you the most correct answer we can about it. So it's going to have to wait, unfortunately. Kenneth asks, does the mayor have the exclusive privilege to appoint new trustees? Can the board ask to interview potential trustees? Too often we get the wrong people and they often quickly leave because they did not understand their obligations as a trustee.
Good question. So under the law, the mayor appoints the board members to the Board of Trustees. And depending on, I think it's in a city or maybe it's the other way
Yeah.
around, I can't remember. But in one of
One
them, it
has the
says
business manager.
that with the council it's the governing body, but essentially it's the town. It's either the mayor or the mayor with the board, with the governing town council or whatever they're called in that
Mhm.
town, who have the statutory authority. That's the only one. The board has no authority legally to appoint trustees. But the second part of the question is, can the board ask to interview potential trustees? You certainly can ask. And then the third part of it is that you often get the wrong people, and that they quit quickly because they don't understand what they're getting into. That is a good argument for the mayor to say, mayor, pick whoever you want, but allow us to sort of vet them and let them, before you nominate them, let us talk to them and tell them what this is really involved. Because I'm sure you, as well as we, want to make sure that we get the best people and people who are really interested in doing this, because it's sometimes not easy to be a library trustee. It could be a lot to do. And I admire people who volunteer. The board presidents that I've met are uniformly across the board amazing people, very smart people, very committed people. And every board that I've met, I've never met somebody who was not in that high category as a trustee president, as well as the members are all committed. And so it's a great idea, but I think you just have to ask the mayor. And the way I would do it is say, you pick who you want, but if we could vet them and help them to understand, it would save you the problem of having to keep finding new people, mayor. And it would help us to make sure we have people who are committed. And you're not stepping on the mayor's toes that way, because you're not saying, we'll tell you who to pick. That problem.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
You can suggest, sometimes you can suggest people who are interested, because there's usually an application that people have to put in order to serve on the board. And then if you do have board members who are appointed, because the mayor has full say in terms of who's appointed, make sure that you do that, the director and the trustee, possibly the chair, does a trustee orientation. So for the new trustees, a tour of the library and just a review of the responsibilities and whatever, once the person is on board. So at least they do from the beginning have a clear idea of what to expect.
Yep. Okay. We have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to say it's the last question in the queue, and I'm going to say it's the last question of the night. So without further ado, anonymous attendee asks, isn't taking money back for health insurance, building maintenance, and the like a means of reducing the 1/3 mil which libraries are entitled to via statute?
No. Oh, okay. I should tell you why. No, I don't think that. I don't think that is doing that, because that's what the 1/3 of the mill is to spend on expenses. Now, taking back money for health insurance, well, if the library board is saying that these are the library board's employees, then who else should pay for the health insurance? If you're saying the town should pay the health insurance, then you're saying they're town employees. So I see nothing wrong at all. I don't think it's reducing the 1/3 of the mill. I think it's spending the 1/3 of the mill. I think when it's done involuntarily, it's a problem that the library board has to agree. But certainly for health insurance, there's no reason not to agree. For building maintenance, likewise, it's a permissible expense under the law for a board of trustees, and the board of trustees has control and use of the building as a matter of law as well. So whether you have that service provided by the town or you have it provided by an outside service, the subcontractor, the board's still going to be paying for it out of that 1/3 of the mill. So I don't think using the money for those purposes is reducing the 1/3 of the mill. That's what part part of what you're supposed to use it, why you're supposed to use it.
Agreed. Douglas, thank you very much for
Thank you
spending your
so
evening
much.
with us tonight.
Yeah.
This was great. It went really fast. I have to
It
tell you.
really did go fast.
They do tend, these kind, especially when there's tons of questions and it's like you're just, you get into a flow. It's like all of a sudden you look up and it's 8 o'clock. But thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us. I know I can't wait to see you again in Atlantic City for the NJLA conference, and I
Yeah.
hope some of the people on tonight with us will be seeing him and the rest of us there next week as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and keep in mind, there's going to be a trustee meetup on Thursday at 3, and Douglas is going to be there briefly. So
Excellent.
yeah, if you're there in Atlantic City, do stop by and meet other trustees in person.
Yep,
There you
I'll be
go.
there. I'm even though I'm not a trustee. I hope you'll let
I'm
me
not a
in.
trustee either, Bob, and they're letting
That's
me go. So
fine.
it's okay.
That's fine. You are
Well,
more
they
than
let you
welcome.
in because you actually know stuff. I'm just like here.
No, don't kid yourself. For years I've been hearing, well, we heard from Bob Keith at the state library, and in most cases I agree with what you're saying. So
Hey, you could be an
Thanks.
attorney.
so you could say
Don't
plenty.
tell
You
my
know
mother.
plenty, and everybody knows that. Sorry, it's not going to work.
Has been wanting me to go to law school since I've known my wife. So yeah,
Oh boy.
keep her away from that. Anyway, thank you
Well,
all
thank
very
you.
thank you very much for spending the night with us, and we will see you in June,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, in June. Yes, we have a session scheduled in June.
Yeah. What was the date on that again?
You know, do I remember it? It's terrible.
Pat Tumulty, do you know the date on that?
No, I don't.
Oh,
Oh.
come on. This is
No, I
terrible.
don't. Sorry about that.
You know what? I'm sorry too. We should have
Oh, you
had
know
it.
what? I think it's the 25th.
Okay,
It's June 25th, which is a Wednesday.
that's
It's
good.
going to be a session on purchasing and
Yes.
with John Arthur.
Yes, that's right. So June 25th, 7 o'clock. Well, there's
Yes.
two, right? There's one at 1 o'clock and one at
Oh, there
7
might be one at
for
1 for directors
and then
7.
trustees in the evening. But that's good that we get back onto the Wednesday nights, because again, we had a bunch of people say that Monday nights are their board meetings. So
Yeah.
so we'll get back to Wednesdays. And as always, has been being recorded and will be posted on the State Library YouTube channel as soon as I can get it, but definitely before the end of this week. We'll send that link out to the NJLA listserv and to the directors
NJLTA.
listserv and NJLTA, sorry, NJLTA listserv and the NJ Pub Libs directors listserv, so everybody can watch it. And with that, we'll see you next month.
All right. And thanks again, Douglas. Thank you.
My
Yep.
pleasure. Thank you all very much. It's been fun.